The American constitutional system embeds a decentralized capacity for accountability that allows grave offenses to be addressed at the level where their human consequences manifest. In the framework that designates policies of the COVID response as generating the imprescriptible offenses of COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse, this local pathway provides a direct and legitimate mechanism for justice. A single documented victim within a county, particularly a child who suffered death, permanent disability, or severe injury after enforcement of a vaccine mandate or coercive protocol, establishes the territorial nexus required for a county court to assert authority. This victim-centered approach transforms distant national decisions into concrete criminal acts with local effects, enabling law enforcement officers and county judges to initiate proceedings grounded in tangible harm rather than abstract policy. The extensive public record of guidance, testimony, and coordination then supplies the evidentiary connection between high-level actors and the specific local crime. This pathway directly engages the accumulated legal architecture of immunities and protections that shielded the implementation of the response. The PrEP Act, emergency powers declarations, qualified immunity, sovereign immunity, and supporting judicial precedents are examined not as absolute barriers but as components of the pre-planned criminal enterprise itself. When local prosecution anchors its case in the suffering of a specific child within the jurisdiction, it compels the legal system to determine whether these immunities can lawfully extend to malum in say offenses of radical evil. The imprescriptible character of COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse removes any statute of limitations barrier, ensuring that accountability remains available regardless of time passed. The process upholds the principle that no accumulation of statutes, emergency declarations, or precedents can place individuals above fundamental prohibitions against murder and child abuse. The local jurisdictional route demonstrates the enduring vitality of decentralized constitutional governance. It requires no centralized federal initiation or high-level approval to commence. A single law enforcement officer compiling evidence of local harm, combined with the self-evident public record of national involvement, can present a compelling affidavit to a county judge. This mechanism generates multiple independent pressure points across the nation, each rooted in the lived experience of specific communities. By challenging the validity of prepositioned immunities through concrete cases, the framework pierces the legal architecture designed to enable and protect the crimes, creating systematic avenues for accountability throughout the hierarchy of coercion. The local victim as jurisdictional anchor and evidentiary foundation. The presence of a documented local victim supplies the essential territorial foundation that empowers a county court to adjudicate conduct originating at higher levels of authority. When a child within the jurisdiction dies or suffers catastrophic harm following a mandated vaccine or coercive protocol, the offense acquires a concrete local dimension. Law enforcement officers assemble medical records, autopsy reports, vaccination documentation, and evidence of local enforcement mechanisms. This factual foundation establishes that the harm occurred inside the county, satisfying traditional jurisdictional requirements for criminal prosecution. The public record of national statements, guidance documents, congressional testimony, and institutional coordination then demonstrates how distant decisions produce the specific local result. The investigating officer prepares a comprehensive sworn affidavit that integrates the local harm with the broader evidentiary chain. The affidavit applies the event-specific framework, arguing that the defendant's actions in promoting, defending, or coordinating the policies meet the elements of state crimes such as reckless homicide, child endangerment, and official misconduct. These acts are framed within the designations of COVID murder and COVID child abuse as imprescriptible malum in se offenses. The pre-planned expansion and exploitation of immunities is presented as an aggravating element that demonstrates conscious design. Because the harm is local and the supporting evidence is drawn from the open public record, the affidavit satisfies probable cause standards without reliance on contested testimony. Upon submission of the affidavit, the county judge evaluates whether probable cause exists that a crime occurred within the jurisdiction. The judge possesses full authority to determine that claimed immunities cannot shield radical evil when it produces tangible victims inside the county. If probable cause is established, the judge signs the arrest warrant. This warrant carries statewide validity and activates standard extradition procedures, allowing the defendant to be arrested wherever located and returned to the county where the harm occurred for formal proceedings. The local victim thus functions as both the moral core and the jurisdictional foundation of the case, assembling evidence and presenting the affidavit to the county judge. A single law enforcement officer can drive the initial phase of accountability by compiling and organizing the evidentiary record. The officer gathers documentation of the local victim's harm alongside the extensive public archive of national involvement, including video statements, press conferences, signed directives, and internal communications. This combined package demonstrates the causal connection between high-level policy decisions and the specific local consequences. The affidavit explicitly frames the conduct within the event-specific designations of COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse, emphasizing the malum in se character of the offenses and the pre-planned nature of the immunities that facilitated them. The completed affidavit is presented to the county attorney, who reviews the materials and submits them to a county judge. The judge examines the evidence under the probable cause standard, assessing whether the facts support the belief that a crime was committed within the county. In this framework, the judge can rule that the PrEP Act, qualified immunity, sovereign immunity, and emergency powers declarations do not extend to radical evil offenses involving premeditated harm to children or systematic constitutional violations. The self-evident quality of the public record and the concrete local victim provide a strong basis for the judge to issue the arrest warrant without requiring extraordinary procedures. This step illustrates the decentralized strength of the system. Ordinary law enforcement and county judicial officers possess the authority to initiate proceedings against even the most prominent figures when local harm and public evidence converge. The process requires no special federal involvement or centralized command. It operates through standard state criminal procedure, transforming the apparent insulation of national actors into vulnerability by grounding their actions in specific, provable local consequences. Challenging immunities and anticipating defense tactics. The local prosecution directly confronts and contests the full range of anticipated defense tactics. Claims of lack of personal jurisdiction are met by the territorial nexus created through the local victim. Failure of causation arguments are countered by demonstrating the foreseeable chain of command and the defendant's role in policies that produced the local harm. PrEP Act preemption and immunity assertions are rejected on the grounds that no statute can shield malum in say offenses of treason, murder, or child abuse. Qualified immunity and sovereign immunity claims fail because the conduct falls outside legitimate official capacity when it involves radical evil. Political question doctrine objections are overcome by the criminal nature of the charges and the presence of a specific victim. Statute of limitations defenses are inapplicable due to the imprescriptible status of the offenses. Selective prosecution arguments are rebutted by the objective public evidence and the multiplicity of potential cases across jurisdictions. Void for vagueness challenges are answered by the well-established definitions of underlying crimes and the descriptive application of the event-specific framework to unprecedented facts. Federal preemption claims yield to the higher constitutional imperatives against murder and child abuse. Each constitutional complication receives direct response through the concrete local harm and the self-evident public record. The county court possesses full authority to adjudicate these defenses and rule on their merits. The framework maintains that the pre-planning and strategic exploitation of immunities constitute evidence of intent rather than protection. Successful resolution of these challenges at the county level establishes precedent that can guide parallel proceedings in other jurisdictions, creating a cumulative wave of accountability. Procedural flow from arrest warrant to conviction and punishment. Following issuance of the arrest warrant, law enforcement executes the warrant and secures the defendant's extradition to the originating county. The defendant appears before the county court for arraignment and formal proceedings. The court conducts the trial, whether through star chamber-style judicial affirmation of the public record or a traditional jury process. The self-evident nature of the evidence and the local victim's case provide a clear foundation for determination of guilt on the charges of COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse. Upon conviction, the county court implements the reciprocal punishment framework. The shutdown phase orders complete asset forfeiture and professional disqualification. The lockdown phase maintains custody throughout asset recovery and sentencing. The full vaccination phase requires administration of the complete vaccine schedule previously imposed on the public, with mask mandates enforced during incarceration. These measures are executed at the county level, maintaining self-containment within the jurisdiction where the harm occurred. The court possesses full authority to oversee the entire sequence without necessary involvement of state penitentiary or federal systems. Strategic decentralization and perpetual accountability. The local jurisdictional pathway creates a decentralized network of accountability across the nation. Multiple counties, each acting on its own documented victims, can pursue parallel cases using the shared public evidence base. This structure multiplies pressure on defendants while preventing any single dismissal from halting broader progress. Successful local convictions generate precedent, encourage cooperation from lower-level participants, and build the responsibility ladder upward through the coercion hierarchy. The imprescriptible status of the offenses ensures that the process remains perpetual, with new evidence or emerging victims capable of triggering additional proceedings over time. This approach upholds the moral and constitutional order by refusing to allow technical immunities to shield radical evil. It demonstrates that the decentralized character of American governance contains the capacity to address systemic crimes when they produce concrete local victims. The local pathway therefore serves as both a practical mechanism and a reaffirmation of the foundational commitment to equal justice under law, regardless of the scale or official character of the offenses. Conclusion. The local jurisdictional pathway offers a constitutionally grounded and operationally accessible route to accountability for COVID crimes. Through a documented local victim, dedicated law enforcement officers, and county judges willing to examine the full record and challenge abused immunities, the process initiates arrest warrants that reach high-level actors. This mechanism directly confronts the pre-planned architecture of protections and forces the legal system to determine whether such shields can stand against malum in se offenses. The pathway integrates seamlessly with the event-specific framework by treating COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse as imprescriptible wrongs that transcend ordinary procedural barriers. Its decentralized nature generates multiple independent avenues for justice, each anchored in the suffering of specific communities. The public record provides the common evidentiary foundation, while local harm supplies the jurisdictional anchor that enables county courts to act. Ultimately, this local approach reaffirms that no accumulation of statutes, precedents, or emergency declarations can permanently insulate radical evil from accountability. By beginning where the harm occurred and building upward through documented chains of responsibility, the framework delivers systematic justice that matches the scale and coordination of the offenses. The county-level pathway stands as a vital instrument for restoring constitutional order and moral balance in the aftermath of the COVID crimes.